So I want to start off with a definition. I marvel at the fact that knowledge management as a field is still about as poorly defined as one could possibly imagine. It's an abused term, as I put it. Now, one of the things we specialize in is taxonomy. So if you want to talk about abused terms, I'm your guy. But when we talk about KM, all these things down in the colored boxes with fonts too small for you to read are any number of different definitions I pulled off of different sites. The ones I want to draw your attention to are the ones up at the top. These are my definitions. So concepts, practices, and technologies used within and between organizations to capture, manage, and distribute information. The reason I like to start with that is to really level set what we're talking about here. In reality, knowledge management has existed as a concept since people were drawing on cave walls. They were taking information, recording it, and then that information was being shared the next time a caveman walked by the wall and saw the picture. What we've done today is taken that to the point where this is practical, where it should be something where it's not just capturing of information, but then acting on that information in a way that's meaningful. So it's the addition of that collaboration, action, and process, and ideally, the use of technologies to do that. Now here's the thing, since I shaved my beard, I know I look really young, but I've actually been doing this stuff for a while. The reality is that 10 years ago, if I were to give this talk, I'd tell you that the technology is not really there yet. But over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of progress there. And so from the enterprise content management systems to the stuff that used to be called portals and are now the enterprise information suites to auto-categorization tools and search tools, these products work. 10 years ago, my company would get hired and it'd be 3 in the morning and we'd just try to get the software to install. When it finally did, we'd weep, we'd cry, we'd hug, we'd all be happy that we were actually getting this thing installed. Where we are now is that these technologies work. The cloud is reality. You put the disk in and these things start running, and that gives us the opportunity to focus on what really matters, which is the organization of that information, the usability of the systems, the change management required in order to get people to adopt them. And that hits on the second bullet, leveraging technologies. Not for the sake of technologies. Don't tweet because you like to type in small bit characters. Tweet because you want to share knowledge and collaborate. We've had so many organizations come to us and say, we want Facebook. We want Facebook inside our company. We want Facebook inside our network. And that's fine. I respect that want. But what are the business requirements backing up that want? Why do you want that? What are you going to do for it? What's it going to do to your business? Let's not start building something until we can answer those questions. And so the word practical up there is critical. What can we do that's going to benefit our business users? How do we leverage technology to enable the capture, management, sharing, and action that we've talked about? So obviously there's a lot more than 4 keys to successful KM, but these were the ones that, thinking in this presentation and thinking about the many case studies I wanted to share with you, jumped out for me. And interestingly enough, this seems to be a lot of what our customers are asking for today. The first and always foremost is a focus on the end user, whether that is a customer who's shopping out on the web for a new pair of sneakers, or whether it is your internal user who's just trying to get their job done so they can go home and see their kids. It's understanding what those end users need and want. That's what I call the business requirements. Before you even start talking about what you want from a technological standpoint, you need to understand what it is your users need to do their job, to accomplish their mission. I love hanging out with web designers for no other reason than the entertainment value. Every web designer I've ever met thinks that people want to come to their site and hang out. Just click around, read every page. It's just all about being there. The reality is that nothing could be further from the truth. People come to a site because they have a question they want answered. They have a need that needs to be filled. And so by focusing on our end users, we're going to make sure we understand what those needs are, and we're going to design for no other reason than to address those needs. Sometimes you don't need Facebook for your company in order to address the burning business needs of today. That lends perfectly to our second bullet here, which is focusing on the business value. Now again, 5 years ago, there were a lot of people that were implementing portals because their competitors were implementing portals. They were implementing portals because it was the fad. It was the thing that people said was going to revolutionize the industry. One would think I would have been thrilled with that because my company does a lot of implementations around that sort of product. But I was actually pretty troubled by it because what I was seeing was that organizations were implementing these tools not because there was a business requirement for it, but because, hey, it's cool, it's happening, it's now. The same thing is happening now with social media, with Web 2.0. We're seeing organizations asking us to implement these tools because that's what people are talking about, and that's what's sexy at a conference like this. I love the enthusiasm, but that's not enough of a driver. Number 3, build roadmaps and leverage iterative methodologies. Aaron Leonard, back over in Taxonomy Bootcamp a couple hours ago, was talking about using Agile for taxonomy design. I thought it was a really cool talk, and it definitely lends to a lot of what I'm talking about here, which is the idea that any successful knowledge management project is going to be a very long project. The concept of waiting to engage your users or show your customers something at the end of that project is not going to fly. I think most organizations are savvy enough today to recognize the fact that a big bang rollout is just asking for disaster. But we can take it even further. We can recognize the fact that an agile type of methodology, constant engagement with your end users, won't just help you design a better solution. It will also impact the change process itself. Meaning if you engage your end users from day 0 of a project, you are, in fact, preparing them for the change. You're getting them to unlearn the old thing, participate in learning the new thing through the design process. We do a lot of taxonomy design, and our methodology for that is to engage the people who will actually be tagging content, the people who will actually be navigating the site, who will actually be searching for information. In doing that, there's a lot of hair pulling, and sometimes there are tears. I've had somebody take a swing at me once, but it was a federal agency, it's fine. So through all of that, what we actually get are people who are indoctrinated into the process. People who used to think that taxonomy was stuffing dead animals have gone through a process with us, painful at times, but a process nonetheless that has educated them. That then allows them to take this concept and bring it back to their colleagues, their cohorts. So I'm a consultant. I could go to these people throughout the organization and I could tell them why this thing's going to be so great. But isn't that message so much more powerful than the person that sits in the next cube from them, the person who suffers through the same challenges that they do? So when I say up here that we want to design roadmaps and we want to have those roadmaps be iterative, we embrace the fact that KM is going to take a long time, but we want to slice it up into as many little buckets as possible such that we can engage our users, such that we can get them moving in the same process as we are and effectively adopt them as our change agents. Now, the last bullet is, from a practical sense, probably the most critical. Use the right technology in the right way. Don't build because you can, build because that's what you need. One of the things that we do a lot for organizations is help them select the right technologies. And I can tell you, I am constantly amazed by the CIO who's disappointed when we haven't selected the Cadillac product. Sometimes you need to guard against your own want to be on the bleeding edge, to invest in the coolest, hottest, newest thing. Maybe you don't need Facebook right now. Maybe a classic threaded discussion that you can get as a $5 open source is enough. Maybe that's the first step in a roadmap, and once you prove that out and work out the kinks, you can get to the next thing. So, taking those points, I just want to spend a minute walking you through a few stories here. All of these projects are from the last 12 months, and my hope is that you'll see some of the same themes I've just discussed through each of these. This is a global manufacturing company. They have a presence in every continent, and yes, I do mean every continent, including Antarctica, amazingly enough. Their challenge is that they've had an intranet portal for close to a decade. They have experienced pretty much every one of the major issues you would expect from that. They have content bloat, meaning that over the last 10 years, somebody said, what do I do with this document? The answer was, stick it in the portal. They have had a navigational creep, meaning that because they didn't have tight governance around their information systems, there were constantly people, sort of rogue commando designers, who were building new portions onto the site. I think a lot of organizations have experienced this. These sort of second generation portals are so easy to administer that you get too many people building off of them. So this was an organization that started with 50 sites, to use SharePoint parlance, 50 team sites. And over the course of the last couple of years, it had ballooned up to over 3,000. This was an organization that, when the system was initially deployed, had about 10,000 pieces of content, 10,000 documents. And when we came in this year, they had crept up to 900,000. So that's what we call the needle in the haystack of searchability or findability. It doesn't matter how much content or how well your content is organized if you have to wade past 899,000 documents in order to get to that one that you really need or want. So the first thing we did for this organization was set up a governance committee. Now I know governance is one of those really boring words, and I think so the first thing we did for this organization was set up a governance committee. Now, I know governance is one of those really boring words, and I think every speaker today has probably invoked it, so let me explain to you why you're hearing that from me. The first mission of this committee was not to start locking things down. The first mission of this committee was to define the business value of their intranet portal. Why did they need this? What was the true mission for it? And we spent over 3 months literally going to every continent and interviewing people from every business sector, from every part of the organization, both junior, senior, people who have been there a week and people that have been there 20 years. We conducted interviews in over 15 languages in order to define that business value. And it was that governance committee that, while that process was happening, we're also defining what we call project governance. For a global organization like this, their biggest challenge isn't getting the technology. They already own every technology on Earth and actually designed a few of their own to boot. Their challenge is in making decisions that will actually serve their business users. So as we were listening to the business users, we were setting up the home base to be able to act on those decisions by defining clear roles and responsibilities and policies and procedures. Yes, I know that sounds dry, but it's the thing that over the course of the last several months has allowed them to design an enterprise information suite, select a number of subcommittees to start cleaning out their content, and develop effectively a communications, education, and marketing plan that's going to go back out to all their business users and prepare them for an initial rollout in January. This is one of the biggest organizations on the planet, and they've moved faster because of governance than they ever dreamed possible. DFAS is my next mini case study. DFAS is the Defense Finance and Accounting Service. This is the part of the Department of Defense that pays the bills, and so as you might imagine, they've got a pretty business critical function. they had the challenge of refreshing their portal. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they were an early adopter. They selected Plumtree, if anybody remembers that, back in 1998 and implemented it then. So much like the last example, over the course of Plumtree being acquired by BEA being acquired by Oracle, and the product now being end-of-lifed, there had been a lot of cracks in the fissure of the technology. But more importantly, the overall system had sort of run amok. It had just grown out of control, as these things do. We all know our information trends towards chaos if we don't watch it. So they asked us to come in and do a refresh. Now, they called it a technology refresh, but in reality, it was an information refresh. The critical piece here was the fact that their users had lost faith in their internet. When we went around and we talked to people, we heard the same exact things. Search doesn't work. The information isn't reliable. You know what? Search worked fine. The technology was completely viable. It was the fact that they had just thousands of documents that were poorly tagged and poorly categorized within the system. So for this group, we really focused in on taxonomy and tagging. What we recognized is the fact that, yeah, even though Oracle's now end-of-lifing the technology, DFAS doesn't have the budget to go and put in a new shiny tool right now. And so the most cost-effective thing that they could do to address the business needs was clean up their content. So again, we went around to all their global sites, to Limestone, Maine, and over to Germany, and all the way into Hawaii. I went on that one personally, by the way. And for each of these sites, we developed a little team of content commandos. It's the Department of Defense, so we had to get a militaristic term in there a little bit. So these content commandos that were responsible for cleaning out the content that wasn't nerdy. So nerd is my favorite made-up acronym. New, essential, reliable, dynamic. Your requirement in your information systems is to guarantee that your content is new, that it's the essential stuff, that it's reliable, meaning that it's the correct policy, not the HR policy from 5 years ago, and that it's dynamic, meaning that when your users go in, they'll see new stuff. They'll see that things have changed and been updated. If you can ensure your content is nerdy, then it doesn't matter if you have that new shiny search engine or that new information system. So over the course of several months, we worked with them to clean up their content. User satisfaction skyrocketed. There wasn't new technology here. There was barely a new design. We cleaned up the taxonomy, we changed navigation, but it was about the content, and that was success.